Kia ora and welcome to another edition of South Pacific Muscle. Look, tonight we're not going to muck around, we're going to get straight into it. We've got a guest on tonight, a IFBB pro from New Zealand who's won multiple titles as an amateur. He's won Miss New Zealand and competed in a number of classes. So really excited as usual when we get a guest on to have a good rap with him. So we'll bring him on in a few minutes. It's Mike Kingsnorth, or Michael Kingsnorth, as some of you may know him. And then after that, we're going to keep Mike on board with his expertise as a pro bodybuilder, and we're going to have a crack at this Alicante show, so the European IFBB champs that are on this weekend, to have a shot at picking our top threes and reviewing some of the athletes.
Nice one. Let's get into it.
Okey-doke, I'll bring Mike in. So welcome along, Mike. Fantastic to have you here. Been a while, actually, between drinks.
Been at least a couple of years. Yeah, since I've
moved. Longer for me, Mike.
Yeah. Well, we're both 90s bodybuilders, aren't we?
Yes.
I guess.
Hey, look, what we might do, Mike, is get you to give yourself a bit of a brief introduction. I've taken some photos.
Brief.
Yeah, I know. Trying to keep it
old.
So what we'll do is we'll get you to do an intro, and then we'll have a look at some photos and a bit of a rap about your competitive career.
Yeah. Okay. Just tell me when.
Fire away, man.
Okay, so I'm Mike Kingsnorth, the 2006 overall Mr. New Zealand with IFBB. I had a reasonably storied career before that, off and on, a lot more off than on, with work, family, all that sort of stuff, but quite successful one. I think it was 5 or so national titles, won the Australasians, all that sort of stuff, did really well. And then said to myself, well, I'd rather come last in the go-karts first in the Formula One get it right. Rather come last in the Formula One than first in the go-karts. So threw my name in the hat on April 15, 2008, and within 11 months was on stage with Dexter Jackson the year he wins the Olympia. And
nice.
Really it is an amazing journey that it drives you to be better than you were going to be. And if you'd stayed around and just kept on measuring yourself against the same guys you'd normally measure yourself against, with all respect to them. And I competed at a few shows, 2008, 2010, then started up business and whatnot, and took a wee bit of a break. And then last year decided to throw my hat in the ring one more time with Classic Physique after seeing what Matteo did, and went off and did the Chicago Pro Show with the Wings of Strength guys. Then went on a week later and did Vancouver, did very, very well there. And then we decided to give it a shot in LA, stupidly on my behalf, because I was dealing with a really severe neck injury at the time. So came nice in the middle of the pack somewhere. So bit of experience.
Hey, question for you, and I want to come back to your business as well, but I've met a lot of these guys at the Olympia, etc., and at pro shows, and when guys have come to New Zealand as well, and I'm pretty in awe of these guys. What was it like walking out into the back room and seeing these guys tanning up and getting ready, and knowing you had to stand on stage with them when you hit that first pro show?
Terrifying, to be blunt. I remember me and Salah walked backstage in 2008, and the first one we saw stripped down was Ronnie Raquel. And if you remember Ronnie, he literally looks like he has an extra layer of muscle over his muscle. And I turned to Salah and excused my language, and I just said, Salah, what the fuck are we doing here? I wanted to be a good junior, and I don't know whether I ever got it, and somehow I accidentally ended up backstage in a pro show. And, I literally was walking off stage after my first, comparison round, side by side with Troy Elves. And I literally gave it a big whoop on stage, because I was just like, I was there, and I'm not too proud to say that night when the results came out and I'd beaten a few people, I cried, because it was real validation. We were getting it, Salah and I are both getting it fairly rough on the chat boards back here in New Zealand. Yeah. People questioning our credibility and whatnot. And here's me beating guys. And that night I beat 2 guys who've been to the Olympia. So it was a big F you to those guys. You know, yeah.
New Zealand previously, I don't know if it's quite as bad as it was, but huge amount of that tall poppy syndrome within our sport. And I think, you know, like once you step up to that next level, you kind of rise above the silliness of it all. And
yeah, it was ugly. And as you say, we step up. Those of us who are there, we support each other. We send private messages, just encouraging, supporting. You guys don't know what goes on because you don't need to know, I guess. But man, it's massive within the pro community. There's a lot of love and support within New Zealand.
Yeah.
And generally, I'd say the population though has improved since gym and training and bodybuilding has become more mainstream. People have got it really good nowadays. I mean, when you're seeing guys like, you know, Jonah Loma and Ruben Wiki doing bodybuilding shows, it's suddenly become acceptable. Whereas back, you remember, Nate and I, back in the 90s, if we walked down the street in a singlet, people would yell out abuse at us. You know, now you walk down the street in a singlet, people are going, bro, what supplements you taking? Where do you train? What do you bench? It's actually acceptable. It's something, a matter of pride to me because, you know, I'm dyed-in-the-wool hardcore bodybuilding fan. And for it to be accepted is fantastic. And because of my business, I get to hang around with some really impressive people within the New Zealand sporting community. And it's quite funny because they look at us eye to eye. They don't look at us as being, you know, those odd little bodybuilder guys. They're, you know, I can tell you this guy used to lead the All Black Haka who I have a business relationship with. And his goal when he retires from rugby is he wants to do a bodybuilding show. There's no disrespect from those guys.
Yeah, cool. That's really cool to hear. Hey,
it seems more than anything.
yeah, look, I hear, and I think that, you know, bodybuilding becoming a lot more mainstream, probably, you know, due to social media is probably the main thing. But
Really,
I've always been proud to walk down in my stringer singlet. Not quite as good as our previous conversation about Hugh Willis walking the dog in the 90s. And the short and the short shorts, but look, you know, look, if you've got it, you know, I always said if you've got a Lamborghini, there's no point hiding it in the garage, you know.
And in Hugh's defence, the guy was 127, good looking like a model, tall, articulate, intelligent, you know, great shape, and you know, and he could pull it off. So, and if anyone said anything, he was a former national heavyweight kickboxing champion. I remember, so, but nobody did. It was a little odd at sort of 8 o'clock at night walking past the bars, though. But you know,
hey, if you can do it, you can do it. Hey, look, what I thought I'd do is I'll pull up some of these photos because I've got some great photos, and I even hey. Yeah, with me.
While he's pulling it up, I was digging through trying to find the picture I had of you, Mike, from back in '94 at Park in the Bar, where you were stripping as a police officer, but I just couldn't find it.
Yeah, way back. Well, I ended up working the door there for a while. It was a lot more fun working the door. You could be fat and out of shape and hairy. But yeah, I used to do the dancing back then, and it was just crazy. It was great for bodybuilding. All of the dancers were bodybuilders because we'd work 2 or 3 nights a week, make, you know, $1,000 to $1,500 cash back in the mid 90s when you filled your tank gas up for $35. The rest of the week was go to the gym or go to the movies or go to the beach. So yeah, look, those massive legs I start with, those massive legs.
I remember you. Right, Mike, I remember you painting Dream Tan down the middle of your abs, painting in your abs before you went out. And I said, "Is that an old bodybuilder's trick?" And he said, "No, that's a stripper's trick."
Yeah, I got that from a guy trying to be a booth. So, yeah, you see, I started off weight training. I was 65 kilos. My legs in that picture, not even cracking 21 inches. They're about the size that my arms got to at their biggest in the end. You know, and then there's my first comp win after a year of training on the left there. I thought I was pretty good. You know.
Hey, wasn't you know, Hawley's back in the day, you know, was the brand. And I remember when I think it was Steve Lynch was sponsored, and they used to have life-size cutouts of Steve Lynch at the gym.
Yeah, Hawley's was pretty much the only brand, and I'd work for Peter Hardwick. I worked at his gym, and sometimes in lieu of pay, I'd take a tub of dissected liver tablets. And don't know if they did any good, but it was pretty much everything you get. And you'd win a show, and you'd be your prize would be a wholesale price list.
Times.
Yeah, this one is 2 nights before the 2008 New Zealand Pro Show, where I might look reasonably impressive even by my own eyes there. And there's a photo you may have of me in a comparison where I look competitive, but I'm getting swamped in reality, and you guys don't even realize how big these guys are. That's the one. So I look competitive there. And the back shot that goes with that one, they put in Muscle and Fitness magazine, and I call it my retirement shot. I looked at that and went, you know what? Some boys used to criticize me, saw this, and I'm up there and doing it. And I got an amazing compliment about this picture from Troy Elves himself once. I put a comment about it on Insta saying, you know, it was just up there, hanging with the guys and whatever. And Troy came back and says, Mike, you're doing a hell of a lot more than holding your own. And for a guy like that, who's won pro shows and top 10 the Olympia, I mean, every one of these gentlemen is top 10 the Olympia. And for me to be able to stand there and not look too shabby, and for him to comment like that, that was just like game, set, match. Every compliment I'd ever needed was in that one sentence. It was incredible. He was an amazing guy. When me and Slow backstage, we asked, what do you weigh? And he goes, oh, about 100 kilos. And we're like, oh, you're freaking amazing. And he turns, he goes, man, he says, I really appreciate it. That means a lot coming from you guys.
Wow.
And I looked at Slow, and he looks at me and I'm like, who the fuck are we? We're nobody, you know?
And that's the thing, like I've noticed it with the top guys, they really respect a genuine comment from another competitor because they know what it takes, and it's not just your average guy on the street saying, hey, you've got a great physique.
You don't do 2 years and get a pro card, with all respect, slapping on a pair of shorts in this game. You've got to suffer for a long time, and absolutely the respect there. And these guys were great, and Melvin Anthony was giving me pointers backstage just about posing and whatnot. There's none of this whole bullshit hide the t-shirt stuff. It's a real camaraderie, so it's amazing. So that one's the day of the weigh-in in Vancouver. It's the most amazing gym. Anyone ever goes to Vancouver, go and see Big Ron at West Coast Iron. It is the most incredible gym. You would love it, Nate. I mean, just the playlist alone is worth it. But this is actually a screen grab from my phone, and I took a whole bunch of them. I sent them off to Muscular Development, and they loved it, and they actually shared them on their Facebook and Insta, and it was just like, damn, I'm like, Muscular Development sharing my pictures. So that was
you needed to turn your head slightly, just turn your head to get that BSC shot in there.
Some of the other shots it's in there, but it was incredible. The funny thing is, there's a guy in the background watching me, and I didn't know him and he didn't know me. And then I go over and start talking to him, and he's like, and I'm like, oh mate, what are those? What's the ink on your arm? And he goes, oh, it's tamako. He's a married boy living in Vancouver. So and his jaw just dropped because he couldn't believe that someone from New Zealand had come up and looked like this. So and it turned out that he had lived all of like 10 minutes from me.
Wow. Well, hey, look, Mike, you've competed at that highest level, but I mentioned your BSc hat. You've also been involved in the industry. I know you're a PT at one stage, and you had a pretty sharp reputation there. But you've moved into, I guess, into a wider sort of sports community. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your business ventures?
Yeah. I don't know if the reputation was sharp or sadistic, but I PT people the way I like to train myself. And it was literally, when I was PTing, an opportunity came about to manage the PT crew there. I came up with the idea from Shortland Street, and believe it or not, because the manager of Shortland Street doesn't own the building. And I thought there's got to be a better way. So within a few months, I ended up taking over and having 16 PTs work for me. So I've always had a reasonably sort of commercially, I guess, savvy nose. I sniff out opportunities quite well. And then from there, I've been sponsored by Body Science BSc for a couple of years and been giving them some advice about how to run it in New Zealand prior to that. And so when I sold up the PT business, that opportunity presented itself. So I ended up taking on Body Science for the distributorship, simply because I got sick of everyone asking, where the hell can you get it in New Zealand? Because the previous distributor wasn't doing much of a job. And it's been a long game, 9 years now, and we are setting record month after record month. And the growth has been fantastic. And it's basically, my mindset was, I love bodybuilding as much as anybody, but I kind of figured at the launch of it that there's going to be a move in the wider mainstream sporting community into the things that we do. I mean, bodybuilders are basically the guinea pigs of of athleticism, really. And sure enough, suddenly, you know, here's me. You've got the Crusaders pick up to sponsor them. I sponsor the Chiefs. I sponsor the Phoenix. I sponsor All Blacks. I'm the preferred supplier for the New Zealand Olympic team. So I've really taken that whole sports person angle and said, this is what we are about. Having said that, we do have incredible products that are both good for health and good for bodybuilding as well. I don't know if I should say it out loud to be, you know, how things go in the weekend coming up, but I'm supplying the Wallabies some supplements while they're over here too. You know, I might have to immigrate if they win. And I do identify a little bit of talent. So, you know, I love to get back. I love bodybuilding. So I've sponsored a number of New Zealand elite bodybuilding community people from all federations, to be honest. And, you know, so yeah, it's just me waving the flag, you know. And I even sponsored the Silver Ferns at one point as well. So this is,
you've got an opportunity to put something sketchy in the supplements for the Wallabies if you did want to. Be careful, man.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not the game we play. We just give everybody, it's the top 2%, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, supplements are not going to win or lose you the game, but they might just help. So might get
I don't think we'll need to sabotage them.
I think I wondered, Mike, if the Warriors in the last couple of games have been double scooping their pre-workouts because they sort of come out of their skins for the last couple of games and they needed it all season.
Yeah, congratulations to them. We sponsored the Warriors for many, many years too, and I think what showed with those guys was the sense of teammateship, community, joining together, being stuck with that. What they did this year is very reminiscent of the Crusaders in 2011 after the quake and having to travel around back when they got beaten in the grand final by the BSC sponsored Queensland Reds. I had to throw that one in there. This picture, I'll tell you a funny story. I came off stage in Vancouver and I was so happy. They had a photographer back there and I went up and I just said, mate, here's my credit card, shoot me. And he was great to work with. He was a very artistic guy and I've done a lot of photo shoot directing with my athletes in the past, and he was expecting me to sort of hit the pose. I said, what should I do with my chin? What should I do with my arms? And he sort of looked at me and I said, mate, you're the guy behind the camera. You know what you're seeing. I trust you. You tell me what to do, where to move. And he was like, he had a field day all of a sudden because he had not worked with a bodybuilder who put their trust into him. Yeah. And we came up with this one. And if you guys can't even tell it, but that left bicep has actually got a tear. We got that from bouncing, but doesn't look too bad.
Hey, isn't it unusual? I found out when you do photo shoots that the positions they put you in feel really unnatural and really awkward, but the photos come out $1 million and it really goes against what your head's telling you.
Yeah, their lighting is in different places to what we're used to on stage. I always tell people on stage, if you're going to recognise the lights are coming down from right there, so you've really got to sort of position yourself to allow that light to come in. But these guys have got lighting coming from everything. You can't tell in this one. I'm standing within half an inch of a white wall behind me, and I was so nervous about touching it and getting tan on it. He had that to really bounce off, so you can see under the arm the way the light's bouncing up and everything. And yeah, it's fantastic. I wish I'd flexed my glute a bit more, but beyond that, you know, it got to the point for this one and for the next show in LA where I looked and went, you know what, my arms are actually almost too big. So I needed to just kind of train them a little less.
How did you find that transition going from the mentality of, I guess, you know, like myself, you're probably a really good, well, I'm not as really good, but I'll give you the really good light heavyweight that always wanted to be a heavyweight and were trying to put on size for size sake. And then you've made the move from the open class into the classic, where there's a different look required. What from a mindset perspective did you have to adjust?
For me, it was a case of I'm home. Really, this is what my physique. I'm like putting a V8 into a Mini. You know, my frame. I mean, you can wrap your fingers right around my wrist. The tiny joints, as you know, tiny knees. I've had judges looking at my knees going, they're just invisible. They're and so that creates the great illusion of my size. But the reality is when I'm on stage in the mid-90s and, you know, Martin Källström from Sweden was on the same stage at 127 kilos peeled. It doesn't matter how narrow my joints are, you're just getting eaten. And So it was really good, but I really paid a lot of attention. The hardest one was actually around the posing. And I went and got Matteo to coach me a number of times because the mindset on bodybuilding, open bodybuilding, is hardcore, look big, you know, and I had to slow it down, be graceful, and I'm capable, but it was a changing of a 20-year mindset, really, you know, and really focusing on the art of it, really, more than being the biggest. You know, there's no most musculars, you know.
Yeah. And look, really interesting that you went to Matteo, who's, you know, what would Matteo be, 5, maybe 10 years younger than yourself. He's probably younger than me by a year or two.
He's not that much younger than me, let me tell you. He's a few years younger, but not. Well, look at it. The walk, he walks the talk. He's 2-time in the Olympia, top 10 in the Olympia, 2 pro show wins. And I was there when he won his first pro show, and he's pretty good. And I went back a year later after he'd done the Olympia and saw his posing, and my jaw dropped. And I went, you know, it's like you quoted to Anthony in your previous video. The pupil became the master. His posing was just mesmerizing. And I just went, that's got to go to him. And I've always been that way. It's like, you know, if I wanted to learn to drive and had the chance to learn from Greg Murphy, I'm not going to go to the local driving school.
Absolutely.
And I never, in 30 years, had a posing coach. And, geez, it was incredible because, you know, how hard to, you know, to try and pose your back. And you're like, I know what it feels like, but what does it look like? So, you know.
Yeah, that's probably my takeaway message from that, and it's that no matter how long you've been in the game, you can always learn, and you know, that's sort of what part of the idea behind this is, that we can give knowledge out there because people are willing to share it, and if you go looking for it, you know, even after 89, I think you started, you know, even after that long in the game, you can still go to someone else who's got some knowledge that's going to improve you on stage.
Well, sometimes also as we're training and competing and doing our things, we progressively head in the wrong direction. And it's like a golfer's golf swing being out by 1 degree. Not a big deal when it's 10 yards off the tee, but at 200 yards, suddenly it's out by, you know, 30 meters. And we don't realize we're changing. My squatting got worse and worse over time. And I didn't realize that it made my waist bigger and bigger and caused me all sorts of injuries. So I went out and sought the help of Richie Patterson, who used to work for me, but Richie was the gold medalist at the Com Games and Olympic lifting. 15 minutes later, he fixed my squat. The weight dropped down, the technique went through the roof, and all the back problems went away. So, you know, I didn't even know how or why it was getting bad, but I was feeling it.
Hey, look, what we might do now is just jump across, and it's really good having you here, having been on that pro stage. So I want to have a look at the European show coming up, to the show in Alicante this weekend, and I've pulled a competitors list here. And as you can see, I think there's sort of around about 25.
I actually went through all of the names and checked them all out and got some notes on everybody. You asked me what I think of anybody, I'll give you an opinion on them.
Awesome. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of those ones that I kind of pulled out of the names that are being thrown around as the top 5 guys. Just Paul Latham's not competing. I've had that confirmed. And as you told me earlier tonight, Big Ramey out with COVID.
Yeah. So he's obviously been spending a little bit too much time close to Mrs. Trump.
What's that? Where does that leave him in terms of the Olympia?
I think he's got to be out surely, because he can't train and prep and compete and win and qualify before December. Surely not. I mean, but you know, honestly, I didn't see Big Ramey winning it anyway. I don't think he's ever really going to get there. Just don't think he's ever going to quite come in super crisp, and he's Matt Mendenhall for the new generation. So
now there's a name most people won't know. Hey, look, we'll shoot through and have a look at some of these Instagrams, and I'll just bring it up. Bear with me. For those that want to follow Mike, here's Mike's Instagram page. Pretty regular updates on there. Runs a lot of stories. So Mike Kingsnorth IFBB Pro, if you want to follow him. Right, jumping into the pro show coming up. Got Ruffia. Thoughts on Ruffia, Mike?
Love this guy's physique. I just love it. And being an aesthetic guy, I'm drawn to what I've got. You know, it's always the guys with big ugly shapes always liked Branch Warren. But look at how tiny his waist is, sweeping quads. I've always wanted good quads. Took me 30 years to get something that I'm not ashamed of, but just amazing. And he's done well in the heat of it in the New York Pro and so forth, under the guidance of, is it Chris Aceto, is it? It's one of the names anyway, yeah, I think he's a top 3 easy. And from what I've seen, he's in great condition. He's got the X factor, and I don't mean it as in the X shape, although he has that obviously, but just that 3D special. It all just looks right.
Yep. Mike, thoughts on Ruffia?
Yeah, likewise. I love his lines. Nice narrow waist, broad shoulders. I'd like to see him standing next to the bigger guys, the likes of Hollingshead and so on. But as we discussed earlier, for me, it's which way do the judges want to go for a beautiful aesthetic physique, or do they want to go for someone really big? We'll see when we get to James. You know, way less aesthetic, hard and grainy, but cuts aren't as deep. The shape was good. So
and that's the unknown. That's the unknown with the European judges. We don't know what they're going for, really, but he'll certainly hold his own next to those guys. And guys like this, they're a little bit like Chris Cormier in that they may not be quite as impressively sized, but because they're flawless and there's no flaws and mistakes, they show the other people's problems up. Suddenly a guy, you know, who we might be in awe of, next to a guy like this, suddenly you go, oh, his arms aren't quite there, his legs aren't there, or whatever, or they're blocky in the waist. And I tell you what, in this lineup, there was a hell of a lot of blocky waisted guys. You know, they all look like Eastern European strongmen. You know.
Hey, look, my thought here really is that if the Europeans tend to go for that, the sleeker lines, a more aesthetic look, a guy like Raphael could push for the show. But then that would also change the dynamic with Regan as well, sort of thing somewhere between.
Even Samson.
Yeah. Is this the show that the Josh won a couple of years ago? Did he win it?
Ooh, that's testing my memory. Unsure.
Yeah.
Look, Samson, I saw one photo maybe from the Korean show. There wasn't a lot, and I think a lot of those photos got held back. So, I mean, this guy's been dieting now for, must be 8 months, I think, because the show's been cancelled, etc. Probably, you know, in the past, he's been criticised for not coming in with the conditioning, you know, on point, but he looked pretty good in Korea. What's your thoughts, Mike?
Which Mike? I think he's great. I think he got what he deserved in Korea. I don't think he was quite crisp enough. I worry about dieting that long, how that's going to look, and he may not just peak. His back's a little bit underdone, as we can see these pictures. Amazing chest. To me, the thing I pull up about him is I think he looks like he's got longish sort of arms, and he needs to fill them out. They look great in the side shots, but you know, front over vise, rear over vise. Tell you one thing though, if you see on his Insta, his poser, funky poser, really cool.
Yeah. Mike, Tab, thoughts on that?
Yeah, agreed. Again, I'd like to see him sized up against the others, but he has got those nice lines as well. As you say, from the side, their arms, shoulders, really good. I watched a little bit of the stuff with him and Fuad, and yeah, it was pretty crazy what he had to go through. You know, 2 weeks in a hotel room, prepping for Korea, you know, no access to a gym, that sort of thing. So must have been tough for him. So we'll see how his condition comes in. As you say, they've been dieting for 8 months, so he should be crisp, but whether his muscles are still full or whether he's starting to flatten out, we'll just see. But again, you know, his size was apparently he's quite tall, like 5'11" or so.
He used to be a rugby player. I don't know what position he played.
Yeah. And Regan Grimes, so the man that puts all the back photos up. I really like Regan's physique. I think he's got a really pleasing physique, but very bubbly, like the American, full bubbly, not the graininess that's my sort of preference. But I do like his physique. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
You know, I saw the photos from a few weeks back and I wasn't impressed. I thought, man, he's not going to be ready. And the speed he's coming in has me going, okay, he's probably going to be ready, but not that grainy. But I mean, that photo, I mean, look how much the hammies come in. And not that they're there. I mean, if this was 3 weeks out, I'd be like, yeah, he'll be ready. But if this is a few days out, I don't think he's going to bring it. And I kind of saw some of what he was doing in, did he compete in Korea or China or somewhere last year, one of the smaller shows? And it's just something about the way he carried himself was really casual. And I wonder whether he's got that hunger to really suffer and get what he needs to get, So, but God, blessed genetically, great shape, looks good, can grow a mean beard. What more is that?
It looks to me a little bit like the genetics are carrying him through, because was it he only committed? He was classic a year or two ago, so now he's looking to pack that size on. If you haven't held the size for long, then it's hard to kind of hold it and get grainy for shows. So whether or not he loses a bit, I thought that he was a little bit off last time I saw him, but he's looking a lot better here. But whether or not he can hold that size and kind of really get tight, we'll see come show day.
Should see him making top 5, but here's our winner.
Yeah, look, I'm a bit biased because Hollingshead's my favourite current bodybuilder. But that stuff aside, putting it aside, I mean, how far has this guy come under Patrick Tour?
Yeah, I mean, they're just nuts. I'm looking for a floor. Maybe the quads aren't quite up there and the waist might be a little bit full. But, I mean, this is not on the day of the show, so his belly might be a bit full of food or whatever. He'll hopefully pull that in a little bit, and he's got room to spare. He could drop a little bit through the waist, and it'll only improve his aesthetic. Yeah.
So sitting at 3 days out, sitting at 275 at 5'10", I think he is, which is just that's you can talk about mass monsters. That is a mass monster, and he's.
Numbers, Dorian was never that big, but Dorian was much bigger than this. And so, weight-wise, I think that's just a number. I mean,
I really like James Hollingshead as a bodybuilder. I've watched a lot of his stuff, and I like his attitude. I like the way he trains and is focused and so on. I was trying to put him head-to-head with Raphael, and I love Raphael's shape, and I'd much rather have him and much rather be him. So I was trying to talk with Nathan, how can I criticise James? It's pretty hard to, big and full and hard. Yeah. Maybe the separation is not quite as deep as some of the others. As you say, the waist maybe, but he's
doubt trap.
Which way the judges go.
Look at the doubt trap tie, and it's just crazy. But I got a crazy idea. Why don't we put them on stage under the same lighting, and we'll figure it out from then.
Hey, look, I couldn't find any really good photos of Lucas, but he's a guy who has done well at the Olympia level, and I know he's beaten James Hollingshead before. How do we see Lucas going?
Lucas is what Lucas is. He's got no real flaws, but no real wows. You one thing for certain, he's going to come out and do some unusual posing with a karate kick in there. I don't know how old this photo is, but he's sure as 8 days before European, he's not ready. He'll top 5 or so. He's not ready.
I was looking for pictures of him and couldn't find anything super impressive, so I can't really say too much about.
Yeah.
And Mike Kingsnorth, I brought this one up. The guy that you mentioned to me earlier, another Italian.
Yeah. Have a look through, anyone having a look through Andrea _Muzilla, his IG, his Insta. Man, he's impressive, eh? I'd never heard of the guy, but damn. He's great condition, good size, good shape, good lines. I mean, look at that. Jesus. And another one that can grow a great beard. How about that?
So it could be a lesser known name as such that might really upset some people.
That is sensational.
Yeah. Oof. But glad you're not on that stage, Mike.
Mate, I tell you, I walked backstage when I was backstage in Chicago last year, and the Open boys lined up, and my jaw hit the floor. 10, 12 years ago, there was a few big guys, as I said, the guys 127 kilos, but there were plenty of guys who were the 100s, like Troy Elves, 103, 105, and then there's a few of the little boys like me in the mid-90s. These beasts were all 110 plus comfortably. It was just like the business had gone a whole new direction. I made a friend with a guy, because I went up and said, mate, you guys have always done animals. It's incredible. So glad I'm doing classic now. It's just insane. They're all monsters.
I just sort of did a couple others I thought I'd have a quick look at. So got Cuba, who's making his pro debut. So like you'll be walking out there and getting on stage with some of his idols. I know this guy's got an amazing work ethic, and he's very giving to the sport.
Okay.
Bit of an eye opener for him when he gets out there, or you think he'd be able to stand amongst them?
He's gonna. From what I saw, narrow clavicles, bit of an odd shape, a few gaps in his physique. Might have held his own 12 years ago, but it's going to get buried, to be honest. But he works with Jordan Peters, so same guy that Tom Shaw's working with.
Yep.
But congratulations to him. It's a huge effort. You don't open your Wheaties box and get a open men's pro bodybuilding card. So if this is a dream come true, then mate, enjoy every moment.
Absolutely. And I think, like the thing is, once you get there and you've done that first show, people have always sort of said that from there on in, it opens your eyes to what the possibilities are and what level you've got to get to.
Like I say, rather come last in the Grand Prix than first in the go-karts. As a mate of mine's played 2 tests for the All Blacks, and that's 2 more than the 3 of us put together.
Absolutely. And here's a photo I just thought I'd... My coach Jamie is getting up there for the first time, and he's an interesting character. Very very likable guy. 6'5", so probably the biggest bodybuilder I've sort of seen it. And again, another one making his pro debut, so it's going to be interesting.
Is he from? Where's he from?
From the UK. Interestingly enough, though, his mother is originally from Northland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Northland, Wangaree, back in the late 90s, was the hotbed of bodybuilding in New Zealand. Kevin O'Grady was even training up there, but wow. That waist is insane. Great lat spread.
Yeah.
Needs more upper pecs. Because of the height, needs to bring in the inner quads more than anything. So, hope he does something with the hair. And,
I can confirm on video call the other day, he has shaved the beard. And he's got a good jawline.
That's it, last place.
Right, guys. Hey, we're getting through time, and I know we all got to go and eat, so we're going to make it a wrap tonight. But thank you very much, Mike. And look, we'll definitely have you back. It was great chatting with you, and look forward to next time we speak.
Indeed, we'll talk about what's the future may hold.
All right, people. Thanks, people. Stay safe out there and subscribe and like us. Be fantastic. Appreciate it. See you all.
Good stuff. Cheers, guys.